When you're learning to meditate, you find this dilemma. If you try to stop your mind, you will end up feeling more frustrated than anything because you just won't be able to do it. But if you just let it run free, it will just catch you and you'll get distracted all the time. It will be like thinking in any other moment of your life. So what's the point of sitting to meditate? It is like choosing between repressing your mind forcefully in a very unnatural way, or just let it run and just having no structure and therefore no improvement. What to do? This may be the number one problem everyone finds when trying to meditate seriously. But not just for beginners, for advanced meditators actually too. Let's consider why this situation happens in the first place. You find teachers saying, think of no thinking. How do you think of no thinking? Be before thinking. These are the basics of Zazen, as the Zen master. Or create a gap of no mind in which you are highly alert and aware but not thinking. This is the essence of meditation. Or where there are thoughts, it is distraction. When there is no thoughts, it is meditation. But as you progress learning about meditation and you read more books and you get exposed to more teachings, you find some statements that seem to be contradictory to all this. For example, let the mind run on and do not restrain it. Delight in heedfulness. Guard well your thoughts. We are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. But even more than that, if meditation was only just about not thinking, why do we have books about it? Why are the teachings of meditation explained with words? It's a very good question, because words imply thinking. So the teachers themselves are kind of simulating your thinking. But not only that, if you would go into monasteries, you will find monks having discussions and they don't stop arguing about this or that or the other. And for example, we have non-duality, which comes from Advaita Vedanta. And basically they don't meditate, they just talk about it. They talk about realization and understanding, but they just don't meditate. And someone could ask, how does this all fit together? And who's right? I would say both sides of the story had their points, their practical points about it, and both of them are kind of right. It's just more about how you apply it and how you understand it that makes it right or not. So let's make this point clear. Many times when someone is learning meditation is exposed to this idea of not thinking, first thing they try to do is to stop their minds, thinking that that's the way you're gonna succeed. But here's the thing, that's another thought. Trying to stop your mind is another activity you're putting on top of the activity that your mind already has. Although you may initially have a few seconds of, oh, I think I'm not thinking. Oh, there he goes, you're thinking again. So it feels like an endless vicious circle and can lead to a lot of frustration. So it's a very important thing to mention that that's not the way you do it. You just don't try to stop it. You will succeed stopping your mind by two ways. First one is to go all zen about it and just throw your attention out there. You're so much out there that you're not distracted by your thoughts. This is actually very close to what many people will do in high performance activities like arts or sports, where they are just so focused on something external that their mind barely thinks. And the other way of letting your mind go is the other way around, which many teachers refer to actually, which is that you observe your mind with such an intensity, with such a clarity, with such a consistent state that you're able to define all its movements and the contour. You could even say where your mind starts and where it ends, the experience of thinking. They're referring not to let your mind go run wild and do whatever, because then your attention just gets absorbed in every thought. They're talking about witnessing like a cat when it's hunting and it's just completely there. There's this clear sensation of contrast between the observation being silent and the thoughts having a life on their own. There's a sense of disengagement, which done in that way, the mind starts losing its power and de-energizes itself. So it stops while you're actually observing it. On the practice, see what works for you. You're gonna find people who say, do the other thing, just ignore them. Try to see for you works better to focus on something material, something physical, and just throw your senses into that with so much clarity and determination that your mind will start losing its momentum. And the other way would be to see the thoughts in your mind. This seems to be very helpful for many people, to consider your thoughts as clouds that go through the sky. They come and go. So if you're able to detach from your mind, that may be actually a very quick way to go deep and as far as your attention is very stable. If you get engaged in thought and there are gaps of distraction, then you may be deluding yourself. So in this topic of what happens when the mind stops, we have proven at least 2 cases we can be sure of. One of them is that if you sit to meditate or you get into a state where your body is very quiet and you calm your mind completely to the point that you're still aware but your mind is completely non-existent, then that moment is blissful. On the other hand, we also know that people who are enlightened report to have way less thinking than most people. After their sense of liberation, they just didn't went so much about I, me, mine, and all that stuff. So they just got rid of most of the thoughts altogether. So they even report to have long stretches without no thought at all. So for them, life is more like a direct experience most of the time. The problem is it will be very easy to jump to the conclusion that, okay, so I'm just gonna kill every thought, whatever I mean. I'm just gonna work until I get completely rid of thoughts. That may be a bit of a simplification. And if you bring it to the extreme, if someone doesn't think at all, their body just wouldn't move. You wouldn't be able to feed yourself. So that cannot be. It's not just about killing thoughts. It's not as if thoughts are the enemy. So that absolute extreme being completely out of the question, we have the opposite, which is what most people experience, which is all the time a continuous flow of thoughts. We have tens of thousands of thoughts a day. We are mostly unaware of them. Psychology says 80% of our thoughts are negative and 95% of them are repetitive. And this is psychology. This is completely unrelated to meditation directly. So there must be some truth to the fact that reducing your thinking increases quality of life. So it will be clear by every angle that reducing the amount of thinking, especially reflexive personal thinking, necessary thinking, will dramatically improve the quality of life. But ultimately, all this is a personal experimentation. And I want you to try the next time you have a very beautiful moment when you're just there and everything seems to be perfect. Just try to remember to pay attention to what's happening inside of you. Why is that moment so beautiful? Why do you feel so good in that very moment? So something you're gonna notice when you are there living this beautiful, fantastic moment you're living for. You will notice there is actually not much thought happening inside of your mind. It's not that there is none at all. There must be some practical, some planning thinking, some communication thinking. You could say that you notice the absence of getting lost in thinking, of being trapped. On the contrary, you will find yourself being very sensitive to the experience, like living it fully with your senses, like very real, very in the moment. And that implies an absence of thinking. So it's a useful reference. So in a nutshell, we are addicted to negative thinking. And meditation provides a rehab or detox environment, even when it's temporary, but you can get even to an absolute calm, steady mind, providing freedom from the addiction of thinking. The degree of freedom from unwanted thoughts and the degree of concentration on a single thought are the measures to gauge spiritual progress. That's a beautiful way of saying that just don't let your mind contradict yourself. There's a certain kind of intention to it. It's not like just because you're meditating or you're enlightened, you just don't care, or you're just in a state where nothing happens and everything's neutral. And there's this sort of like indifference to everything in life. Not on the contrary, it's full sensory experience of enjoyment. Thank you for watching.